2016 approximately that you were responsible for. Okay, I guess we are ready to start. We have only 1.5 hours, so let's not waste any more time, and because we have excellent speakers, and we hope to have also some time for questions. So this time we are taking questions live here. So you will, at the end, when we have and also. If possible, also after the presentations. So we have tried to have time for short reactions, questions. So then raise your hand and somebody will bring a mic to you. My name is Esa Kokkonen. I'm a director of the Baltic Institute of Finland and coordinator of policy area innovation of the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region. And I'm very happy to moderate this subplenary on innovations for the digital and green transition and sustainable growth. Big topic, important topic in the Baltic Sea region. And this session is organized by us, Policy Area Innovation. We have 2 other coordinators, my colleagues from Estonian Ministry of Economy and Communications and Polish Ministry of Science and Education. First of all, I need to apologize for the last-minute changes in the agenda. As you have seen, we have a hybrid event and we have only one speaker, but the keynote speaker, Dr. Christian Ketels, here with us. Unfortunately, then others are able to join online, but they will be with us during whole event. And then, of course, as mentioned in the program, we have a pre-recorded video presentation by a member of European Parliament, Sirpa Pietikäinen. Apologies for this last-minute change, but I'm sure we'll have a fruitful, interesting session with hopefully active discussion of course, in the framework of this limited time we have reserved for this session. But very happy to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Christian Ketels, faculty member from Harvard Business School and Professor Michael E. Porter's Institute for Strategy and Competitiveness. I guess many of you know and remember Christian already from early years of the strategy and in connection with the first annual fora and in connection with Baltic Development Forum activities. He was the main author of the State of the Region report. That was an annual excellent review update on competitiveness, innovation, business, growth, trade in the Baltic Sea region. Very happy to have Christian here to with his background, looking at BSR innovation journey and path to twin transition. I've requested Christian to be very straightforward, open, give us food for thought. I'm a bit afraid what is coming as a representative of the strategy. but really I think it's important that we need a very open dialogue at this situation, that where we are and how can we make sure that the strategy and in our case policy area innovation, that we are relevant and we are able to really provide these tools for transition in this challenging situation. But please, Christian, very great to have you back in BSR forums, and also that Christian has a nice connection to city of Lappeenranta and Lappeenranta University of Technology. He got an honorary doctorate from Lappeenranta University a few years ago, so it's kind of a nice venue for you in this from this perspective as well. But please, floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Esa, for getting me here. It's a real pleasure to be back in the city. It's a real pleasure to be able to then also see the venue tonight, where we actually had the gala dinner at the doctorate ceremony. So great to be here and talk about innovation in the Baltic Sea region. These are difficult times, not just for this region, for Europe and for the world economy. We have to make choices about where we focus our efforts, how we leverage our capabilities, how we use what we can do to address these many challenges, from climate change to energy transition to geopolitical frictions in our neighborhood, in the world. So I want to talk a little bit about where we stand as the Baltic Sea region with regards to particularly innovation. We all know that we are a strong region. We are an innovation powerhouse. But one of the questions that I want to raise is whether we are just a region by geography. We happen to have strong hotspots of innovative activity within our boundaries, or whether we are a region by collaboration, whether we are collaborating in creating innovation. I also want to talk about collaboration in the Baltic Sea region. Now, all of you that are here in this room are here because you believe in the power of collaboration. You see that there is value, there is purpose in using the Baltic Sea region as a platform to address these challenges that we're facing. I want to go back to some of the experiences that we had with the State of the Region, the Baltic Development Forum, and then, in fact, the emergence of the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region, and reflect on what we've achieved, but also on what new challenges have emerged through the structures that we have created. I will say things that are maybe not very comfortable. Maybe you don't agree with them. But I will say these things because I do feel that we have to question our model for collaboration in this region if we really want to have an impact, if we want to matter beyond the group of people that are engaged in these regional collaboration efforts that we're currently engaged in. But let's start with something that's very close to what we used to look at in the State of the Region report. How are we doing as a region? How are we looking in terms of our economic prosperity, in terms of the growth that we're generating for our population? And the news continues to be relatively good. So we've been seeing prosperity growth in our region. So what you see here in the middle, the BSR, that has been stronger, that has been outpacing the average of the EU over the last couple of years. That has been true in the first decade of the 2000s, but it has also been true in the last decade before the pandemic hit. In particular, we continue to see convergence. One of the key ideas of Baltic Sea region collaboration, of course, was to bring in the Baltics and Poland into this region, connected with the Nordics, connected with northern Germany, and make sure that you're back in the European family. Economically, there are a lot of signs that that has succeeded. Even if you look at the period of the pandemic, this region has done quite well. Now, mind you, I think there has been a lot of heterogeneity, both in terms of our success in dealing with the pandemic, if you look at the death rates through COVID, but also in terms of the economic reaction. Still, overall, we've been doing quite well. So the economic engine Bill talked about, the top of Europe, seems to be still working so far. One of the reasons that this is the case is, in fact, innovation. If you look at international rankings of innovative capacity, if you look at some of our largest companies in the region, we are among the top performers globally. We have a lot of regions that are up in the Global Innovation Index. We have a lot of parts of our regions that are very high up in the Regional Innovation Index of the European Commission. Our member countries are high up on that index. We have a lot of companies among the leading R&D spenders in the world. So the foundations of our competitiveness, of our prosperity, are still quite strong. A particular strength, and one that is very relevant that we're towards the challenges that we're seeing now, is our position with regards to the twin transition. We have economies, we have societies that are more digital than the rest. We have countries, we have economic systems that are already more sustainable than many other parts of Europe and other advanced economies. Now, in that context, it's actually almost surprising that if you look at our CO2 footprint per capita, we are lower than the EU average, but only by about 5%. So that's the first reminder that yes, we are ahead, but we're not playing in a different league from the rest of Europe. We're right among the leaders, and our leading regions are among the leaders, but we're not playing in a different league. Now, if we're looking towards the future, I think we have actually to recognize that the world is changing, and that has a significant impact on where we stand as the Baltic Sea region. If you look here at the data, which is the short-term outlook, we're actually entering a period where all of a sudden our region is projected to grow slower than the EU average. What are the reasons for that? Well, the short-term reasons are twofold. We actually came out better of the pandemic than others, so kind of this bounce-back effect that we see in large parts of Southern Europe is just not as strong. You know, we have less to make up. But it's also because we're hit harder by Russia's invasion of the Ukraine and the economic repercussions that had. We're more dependent than most other parts of Europe on energy from Russia. We are more exposed to the energy price shock that we're seeing from that situation. But there is something bigger here that goes beyond these short-term shocks. If you look at the global economy, we are entering a new phase of globalization. Our region was one of the big winners of the last phase of globalization. We're a group of small open economies. We're knowledge intensive. We're open. So we were very well positioned to really take advantage of the last phase of globalization with openness, international institutions, where being small was no longer a disadvantage, but actually an advantage. That is now in the process of changing. Size matters more. Political power matters more. We're not going to go back, but we're going to see a much more complex international system with trade barriers here and there, political influences on the outcomes of economic activities. That poses our region at a disadvantage. We need to find a new business model to figure out how our region is going to succeed in that new phase of globalization. We also need to look back at the innovation data, because yes, we are specialized on innovation. We're high up on these rankings because they're usually on a per capita basis, but we're small. If you look at the top companies that we have under the really leading global R&D spenders, we have very few among them. If you look at the regions in the world that have the highest volume of science and technology output, we only have one among them. the more size is going to matter again, both for competitiveness and for innovation, the more we need to think about what's our strategic positioning in that new global world that we are facing. Now, all of the data that I talked about so far is really looking at this region as a geographic entity. We're just adding up what individual parts of this region are doing. It doesn't mean that being in the region in itself has any advantage. Could just be coincidence. So the question is, are we talking about innovating in the region or innovating as a region? And this is exactly what the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region is about. What can we achieve through collaboration? Now, I think the question that we need to ask is, how important is this regional collaboration structure for our innovative capacity and our innovation outcomes that we achieve at the region? We have to ask about, are we working on the right topics? Are we in regional collaboration really focusing on those type of things that matter most for the futures of our societies and our economies? Are we putting money behind what we do at the regional level? Are we aligning unique actions behind our innovation policies? Now, if we start out with what the priority area innovation is doing, and you look at the topics and you look at the lighthouse efforts, I think they fit right into what you see our national innovation agencies across the region doing. They also fit very well, of course not an accident, with the EU priorities in terms of innovation. So there's a lot about challenge innovation, climate change and so on, digital transition, co-creating, kind of creating networks. So I would say we are working on the most relevant topics of our days from the perspective of this region. The question is what we're doing meaningful in solving them? And one of my jobs that I've started about 2.5 years ago is that I'm on the board of the Innovation Fund Denmark, so one of our innovation agencies in the region. And I was actually quite surprised to see that, and Denmark is not an exception, I think it's more a normal model for our agencies. The highest focus of our spending clearly is national. That's what our politicians ask us to do. Then we do quite a bit of work internationally, but if you break that down further, the largest chunk is related to the EU, basically in our case, enabling Danish companies to take best advantage of the EU programs. The second largest group is kind of bilateral collaboration with the large economies in this world, the US and China and India and Brazil. And then there is a little chunk, almost homeopathic, for our region in the Nordics. So the reality is that with our funding feet, we're not voting for regional collaboration. We are voting for national or global or international collaboration. If you look at the programs that we launch, Denmark, again, as an example, we just launched Innomissions in a number of areas related to climate change reaction. The same is going on in pretty much all our neighboring countries. So we're addressing global challenges one country at a time, often surprisingly too much in isolation. Now, before we beat ourselves too much on our heads and say, how can we be so stupid? I think it's actually a reaction to the way that innovation has changed over the last couple of years. So innovation has become both more local, regional or national, and more global. So why more global? Well, because knowledge is now flowing much more globally. If you talk to the university folks and the professors in your institutions and research institutions, they will have global networks in which they engage. Anywhere in the world, you can now access the best type of knowledge. That means that telling them to work in the Baltic Sea region context actually is not so much of an advantage because they need to tap into those global or at least European knowledge pools. At the same time, we see that innovative output is generated in a small number of highly localized kind of innovation hotspots. So for that, it's important that you're, maybe in the Stockholm area or in, around Oxford and Cambridge or places like that, you're in that right neighborhood. So you need to be local as well as global. The regional level sort of falls through the cracks. And let's remember, the regional collaboration, it's not an end in itself, it's a means. We're trying to help use regional collaboration in order to achieve an outcome. So I think we need to ask ourselves, what are the areas that are important and areas where regional collaboration can make a meaningful difference in achieving the type of outcomes that we would like to see. We shouldn't be afraid to say that there are a lot of important topics where that's not the case. There's no need to get involved a little bit with a little sliver as the Baltic Sea region. But what are things that we could potentially do? And I want to throw out 3 ideas, that obviously are kind of already quite connected to what we're doing. One is areas in which we can take common actions because there are actually strong regional externalities. So working together allows us to do things in partnership in this region that we couldn't do ourselves because there are common economies of scale or scope. And I do think one good example is the recent announcements that we've seen on offshore wind. We first saw it in the North Sea. We've now recently seen it in the Baltic Sea. We can do more together than we can do individually. All of our member countries also do this individually, but we actually can do more as a group. There's very clear regional value added from our collaboration to innovation. I'm sure there are more topics, and we need to think about those and be very clear about what they are and why regional collaboration makes a difference. The second one is a common voice, and that's easy to say, but actually more complicated to execute. Common voice can mean branding this region as an innovation engine towards the world, attracting researchers and companies to come. Common voice can also mean influencing what's happening in Brussels in particular. How are we designing the innovation policy programs of the future so that they address what we need to see in the region? I would argue that this sounds plausible and good. The reality, however, is also that our region is actually quite heterogeneous. It's not obvious that we will have the same interests in Brussels, and that's already kind of undermining one position. It's not obvious that we want to sell the Baltic Sea region as a common innovation area if you're coming from some of the leaders. My Danish colleagues will have a hard time telling their minister that we are now going to brand everything as Baltic Sea region. The same, I'm sure, is true in Finland and in Sweden and in Estonia and in some other places. But this is something I think that we need to discuss in forums like this. Where is it actually that we can go together? And then the third and final idea, and maybe that's a crazy one, but I do think there is a space in innovation policy where actually neither the national agencies nor the European Union are currently very successful. There's a lot of research shows that while we talk a lot about breakthrough innovations, our funding programs at the moment are very risk averse. Even the newest one that the European Innovation Council kind of puts forward. So there could be a space, I think, for us as a regional entity to say, what we're doing is going exactly into that field. We're using a tool that the others are not using. And the reason that the others are not using it is because it's politically dangerous. If you, as a Minister of Innovation in one of our member countries here, says we are doing it and it fails, your head is on the line. As a region, I think we might have more room to play, because then also the blame is kind of diffused. But this is an opportunity for us to claim a space for ourselves. Maybe a challenge fund, an innovation prize. There are a lot of instruments that are already being discussed, but that haven't really been developed. So what does it take to get there? And I will end with this slide. Ultimately, I think it's about political leadership and willingness to do these things. When I first started to get involved, this was with a lot of work from the Baltic Development and these two old gentlemen that maybe not all of you remember, Hans-Dietrich Genscher and Uffe Ellemann-Jensen, who unfortunately passed away a few weeks ago. They saw a very clear mission for bringing this region together. There was high-level political attention on making this collaboration work. It was messy, but it was also exciting, and there was a very clear reason of why people were meeting. Then we came up with this idea of the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region. And what it certainly achieved is kind of create much more efficiency. It created a structure. It helped us to be more organized and bring this kind of alphabet soup of different organizations together, and I think that's a good thing. But we also have to ask ourselves whether we sort of lost the excitement. We certainly, I think, to a large degree, lost the political leadership. Because if we are honest, now there are very few high-level political leaders in any of our member countries who see that Baltic Sea region collaboration is a winner that they want to put their name on. Nobody dislikes it, but it's even worse. It's kind of borderline irrelevant. It's something that you hand over to the ministries and the agencies to execute. I believe if we want to make a difference, we can't stay with that. I think we need more political leadership, but then it also needs to develop a very clear narrative, including on innovation, on where regional collaboration can do things that we on ourselves as individual member countries cannot do. I believe that space exists, but I think we need to make that step to find it. Thank you, Esa.
Thank you, Christian, and that was. Thanks for challenging us. Thanks for your you reminded about the assets we have in the region, and but also about in this current level of phase of globalization, that how small we still are, and when we have been able to achieve what we aimed at with the early 2000 activities, this kind of a common European strategy, but we have at the same time kind of lost that kind of a political leadership and spirit, and now if sometimes this is needed, and luckily that was discussed also in the early panel today. But let's have a time, or if there's one quick comment somebody would like to, quick question at this point. Not too long one, and there's somebody who is delivering the mics. There's who is responsible of that. You are coming, yeah. So I can do this. Okay, Christian was first.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yes, me too. Yes.
And it's a pity that you are not preparing anymore this report. It was excellent. I have all of them.
Thank you.
They're so beautiful. Okay, the question. No, yeah, okay. Does it work? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Christian, again. What you are concentrating on is the combination of political leadership, as you call it. I call it just politics. This is what the London School of Economics and political science is about. This is a combination of politics and economics. I wonder why we cannot make it closer to politics and economics. These two elites are combating each other fiercely in our countries. Politicians are, for this 4 years term, they are struggling to keep this moving, and economists cannot understand why. How can it perform this political guidance? What do you think would be the best way to make it? Well, it's a symbiosis, but anyway, could you share your opinion on perspectives? Thank you.
I actually would suggest we remember that question for our final session, because I need to think more about that. This is a very, very hard one. How do we bring that economics thinking and the political thinking more together? And obviously, it's definitely the case that we're not alone in this challenge. I think we see the same in many other geographies. But I would suggest we'll pick it up later on. Not now, no.
So thanks once again, Christian. Excellent. Let's try to have some time for. We have then still many contributions, and go into then towards those topics and most important agenda points that we have in the region. But first, we have a pre-recorded video presentation by member of European Parliament Sirpa Pietikäinen. Ms. Pietikäinen has been an active political supporter of the strategy for a long time, and now we will hear her thoughts on how we can move on and see the climate change as an opportunity for tackling of climate change as an opportunity to new sustainable growth in the region. So here's Ms. Pietikäinen.
Moving from climate challenge to sustainable growth is a huge paradigm change. Actually, what we are doing nowadays is quite much of silo thinking and silo problem solving. We do have the emissions, the state of the Baltic Sea. We do have the emissions on the air. We do have the resource scarcity, climate change, toxification, chemicalization, unknown factors, climate change. And when we are running around with all these different challenges, we never quite get it right. We sub-optimize. We do not get effective long-term solutions, and we do have resistance. Okay, then we do need to have quite some system changes in our policy making and understanding to really achieve sustainable growth. It's a bit like instead of having 10 pieces on your table and arguing among yourselves and 10 chefs, are you going to boil the potatoes first, or are you going to boil at all the carrots, and what do you do with the onion, and is anyone willing to have any garlic, and what do you do with the fish? And you never get the fish up. And you lose the ingredients and the time. But if you do have the bigger picture, the holistic view of a fish soup, you understand three things. Firstly, you need to have a backcasting approach. You need to understand what you want to get to decide what to do and in which order. You need some experience. If you never made a fish soup, it would be nice to have a trainer, to have a chef or someone, or at least a recipe to tell you a bit in which order to put the potatoes and carrots and fish on the water. And you do need the holistic understanding how to make a bigger picture, a synergy out of the separate parts so that the outcome is different than what you start with. And to make this kind of a fish soup approach to environmental sustainability, growth and economy needs a couple of the steps. First of all, we need to understand the scale of the challenge, and this is not just doing minor justifications in our economic systems. A bit more effective diesel motors, a bit more less polluting factories, a bit, at least 1 year, more durable consumer goods, or whatever. You need to set the end of the rainbow. And the end of the rainbow is tenfold resource efficiency. And if you don't remember anything else, please do remember this, because if the scale of the challenge is wrong, if the question is wrong, you probably won't get the answer right either. This tenfold resource efficiency means that all the goods should be as durable as possible. They should be upgradable, modular, repairable, and the parts should be able to be used as separate parts as the body of whatever that good is. And then only, and this is the last point, not incineration, the materials should be recycled on the highest material value. Not highest possible, but on the highest material value. That means sometimes even upgrading the material, like it can be in some pulp frictions used in packing, and then afterwards you can use it to form tables or whatever, or short-term usage of some shelter coverings, you can make bags out of it. But then again, at least it should be the principle what we have in PET bottles. You make mostly the same goods out of the materials. And this means that you need to design out the waste in the design phase of the products and services. To make it profitable, this means that always when possible, you should sell the goods as services. Like the efforts what we have in Michelin tires. IKEA is planning to lease its kitchen cupboards. We can lease, for example, lighting, furniture. We can lease energy efficiency, energy systems, property, and so forth. And all this started with this interface carpet company, and if you have not familiarized yourself with this beautiful example a long time, more than 30 years ago, please do so. This means also that to make this kind of an effective backcasting on designing the product or a service, you need science-based knowledge of the scale of the challenge and understanding what is the root cause. So do not tackle only the outcome, and that is the climate change, when the root cause is resource efficiency. And do remember that the biodiversity and biodiversity loss is probably much bigger challenge than what the climate change overall is. Do not forget about the chemicalization, toxicity, or the other factors what we have in these planetary boundaries. And then again, and this is very much up to the politics, the challenge, you should always have in your impact assessment the cost of non-action. Quite often we think that the existing legislation is an economy is a bit like tabula rasa. It's neutral, it's free. But that is not the case. The taxation systems, the legislation, and the subsidy systems favor that kind of, in great parts, unsustainable business systems what we have globally. And those ones that are emerging and are the green growth are still so small and weak, they do not have the lobbying power. And then the existing structures that are flourishing in the existing environments, of course, are telling, do not do this. It is the lobbying telling diesel cars are okay. It is the lobbying telling that the coal can be green. It's the lobbying that you need only the existing energy solutions and so forth. To counterbalance this, we need all the students NGOs, scientists and businesses to start lobbying for the change and showing that it can be and it is profitable. And to show that actually if we do not act, then the costs of climate change, biodiversity loss and whatever altogether are going to be 20-fold the COVID-19 costs in 2030s. And that matter will destroy all of the businesses and economies. So this is not a question whether we like it or whether we do it. We'll do it anyway. The question is only how costly, difficult and traumatizing it's going to be. Or can we benefit and create a flourishing business opportunities for it, because we are going to need food and clothing and buildings and electricity and so forth in the future as well. To do that, we need science. We need people to getting together. We need innovations. We need someone to show the way how it can be done. Partly the green growth initiatives like the Fit for 55, the circular economy package, the eco-design directive, the package on farm to fork on food, the textile strategy, the sustainable buildings and other initiatives, plus the amount of money that is coming from EU sides on this transformation, are attempts to speed up the change. Dear friends, the another part is in your hands. It is the innovation, it is the inspiration, and it is the action. So with these words, I wish you the most successful and inspiring innovation sessions and hope to hear some of the results as well.
Thank you to Sirpa Pietikäinen, and she's been actively involved in she was also speaking about the same topic in our national Baltic Sea Forum in Turku in June, and this could lead us to those kind of a common agenda points, and offshore wind energy, like Christian mentioned, is one then concrete topic, but there are a lot of others where neighborhood matters and where it makes sense for small countries to work together to really enable this sustainable growth. But let's continue to another area, and which is of course hot topic in any innovation agenda policy, European-wide, nationally, and also here in the Baltic Sea region. We are a strong digital region, and my colleagues from the coordinators of policy area innovation from Estonian Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication of Estonia are actively focusing on this topic and in EUSBSR. And we're very happy to have Ms. Sandra Särav, Deputy Secretary General for Entrepreneurship and Consumer Environment from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications of Estonia as our next speaker. So, Ms. Särav, please, floor is yours.
Kiitos. Thank you so much. Moikka. Hi from my side. I'm Sandra, and I'm fortunately here digitally. I'm tuning in from Estonia as I have to fly away in a few hours to Brussels, of course. Where else do government officials go than Brussels? We have a Competitiveness Council meeting tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and I think the topics that are being discussed in the Competitiveness Council are really important in our discussion today as well, and when we talk about topics of digitalization and sustainability. And they're definitely of personal interest to me. Not only is our region and mostly standing out Estonia, I have to mention this, one of the most digitalized countries in the world, one of the most digitalized governments in the world. I've been working in the Estonian government now only for half a year, but I worked here before my little detour to private sector as well. So I did rejoin the government after some time in the private sector. I worked at Bolt, which is perhaps not so well known in Finland because we had some issues entering the market, but we should be known in the Baltics and in some other Nordic countries as ride-hailing and scooter platform. And I worked in this company firstly in policy, but then specifically as the head of global sustainability. So it was my task to figure out how can we make company, the core point of which is to offer transport services as green as possible. And not, of course, only by color, because, you know, Bolt is a green company by color, but to actually make it green. And, you know, to do this in a scale-up startup, which is, you know, in growth phase, the priority of which is still, you know, business ROI or business return on investments. But I bet, I mean, this mindset came more easily than I figured. I sold to the management of the company that in order to offer services in this region or anywhere in the world in this century, we need to go more green. And I'm happy to say that Bolt has succeeded in this. After Bolt, I joined Meta, or Facebook, as many of you might know it. And while working there, I quickly realized that what I like to do the most is to make life better and easier for our people, for our consumers, and to make real innovation. So I left Meta and rejoined the Estonian government. Because I mean, you might not believe it, but our government, this is the place where we can make true innovation come to place. So, I mean, exactly, our ministry, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, is the coordinator of the policy area innovation and policy area energy and policy area transport. So I'm really pleased to start this discussion on green and digital transformation topics from the Estonian point of view. And we're here. I mean, I'm not physically there, but I'm still with you. And we really highly value the Baltic Sea region strategies efforts to really build strong and vibrant economic base to achieve the climate neutral and green Europe. Because there is no way to go. I mean, there is no other way than to go green and to achieve climate neutral. And of course, us as a region, we have to promote our interests and values on the global stage. And we must do this in collaboration with our other macro strategies and cooperation with other policy areas. But to highlight, this is a very, very valuable network, especially for small countries such as us. And I can assure you that our voices are being heard at the global stage. You know, whether it's geopolitical issues, whether it's digitalization, whether it's green transition. The Baltics and Nordics region is very much heard, and we cannot let this voice quiet down. So when it comes to Estonia, I mean, the country may be small, but our actions don't have to be small. And this applies to other countries in the region as well. I mean, some of us are relatively bigger than others, but in the global scale, by size, relatively small, but by our activities, by our mindset, we're definitely not small. So just to quickly elaborate on the Estonian model in transition of digital and green transition and what we call the twin transition in many areas. Digitalization of businesses. I mean, I mentioned in Estonia, 99% of public services are available digitally. And we have some cross-border digital activities or services in place with Finland. We have a joint external platform. We learn from one another. One of the Estonian success stories, the ID card was actually copy-pasted from Finland. So in Estonia, we're not afraid to copy something from others if it actually works. But yeah, the difference between Estonia and Finland and the ID cards is we made it work in Estonia, which we didn't so successfully make work in Finland. But this is just the question of making it mandatory. So, I mean, digitalization of businesses, processes, reducing paperwork, it's often seen something like a golden bullet to achieve a green and digital and sustainable transition and economical goals. But you know, we're already moving forward. I mean, we're looking into these goals, but we have to think about efficiency because being small, the priority for us is being efficient with the most optimal use of the resources. So Estonia and Finland and other countries in the region are taking it to the next level by implementing something known as the real-time economy. So our real-time economy solutions will be available or are somewhat available already both in the private and public sector. And here really the efficiency is the goal. So some of you may ask, I hope you know, but just to emphasize, what's the real-time economy? And under this term, we mean that data and data-based economic infrastructure has data run in real life or near real life between the different partners. I hope it doesn't sound too confusing. We understand real time or real near time. But when you think about purchasing goods or sending some types of invoices or filling any obligatory reports, there's a lot of information that we insert, sometimes multiple times. There's a delay. And of course, you might think it can be done more efficiently. And really, it can. I mean, we don't have to submit documents or PDFs. We can think about how we can exchange this data in real time with no delays or very small delays. And this requires a change in mindset, but this requires also demanding more from ourselves, from our governments, from our companies, again, for the future efficiency. So real-time economy, not only for efficiency, but I believe also the possibility to reduce bureaucracy. I mean, us in this region, we have already relative low levels of bureaucracy, but there's still some administrative burden when it comes to relations with the governments, between the different organizations or our small and medium-sized enterprises. But we do have potential to transform and to release this workload, administrative burden, and look into what we could do more in terms of real-time economy, capacity building, and more efficiency. And of course, this all comes down to data. We need more high quality, better value data, because the higher quality the data is, the more comprehensive overview of the economic sectors that we are working with we get. And more efficient, more comprehensive overview, more quality data actually allows us to make better decisions when it comes to digitalization or when it comes to green economy. And, to take an example, bureaucracy is a huge issue in the transport sector. I mean, I don't know if you know, but, and I don't know if you can believe, but most of the documents in international cargo transport are still on paper. We still do those things on printed out paper and, handwritten pens. Who still uses these things? So it's not only a hassle, it's also a huge burden on the environment. And when it comes to the service itself, it reduces the speed of the cargo delivery as well. So, I mean, look at us, the Baltic Sea region. I personally believe that we can be a leader in Europe and in the world, not only in Europe, if we do develop different types of digital information exchange models, which can be used between ourselves as well as with other countries, so worldwide. So policy area Inno, policy area transport, we have the potential to create synergies with the aim to develop competitive prototypes. So it's up to us. And real-time economy, digitalization, it's not only just a good idea. It's not just something I mention here. In Estonia, we have already assessed the economic impact of real-time economy. So if we would implement some of the real-time data exchange solutions, such as e-invoices, e-receipts, data-driven reporting, then the save for business sector could be more than 200 million euros a year. I mean, Sweden, Finland, compared perhaps to our economies are somewhat bigger, but 200 million, I mean, I guess it matters to us all. And if we want to move away from the euro-wise impact, then actually think about the working hours. Again, this efficiency, which I mentioned earlier. It's possible to save around 14 million, that's 14 million working hours a year, which is the working time of 7,000 people. 14 million working hours, 7,000 people. I mean, 200 million is nice, but if you consider the workload of the people, which we could reduce by implementing those real-time economy solutions, that's the impact that would really be a game changer. And I mean, not only for Estonia, also for your countries. So we do have a vision. We do have a roadmap, how we can create those technical and regulatory facilities by the year 2027, which would help us increase the quality and availability of business data and enable this very much needed digital and automatic data exchange in communication with all those different parties, where now it's just very highly burdensome or quite highly burdensome. And we could do this through semantic analysis, structuring, standardization of data, very important, and the use of appropriate data exchange channels. So paper is not an appropriate data exchange channel. In parallel, we are leading an analysis project in Estonia for compiling the real-time economy common vision and a roadmap for the entire Baltic Sea region. In my ministry, in our ministry, the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications, we also hold something we call the umbrella of this type of activities, and we gather other public sector organizations and other stakeholders so we could make real changes happen, because sometimes they just need a small nudge. Estonia further, of course, as many other countries here, have signed the commitment to become climate neutral by 2050. If you ask for me, this is too long of a goal, but I understand if we want this to be an all-encompassing commitment of climate neutrality, then we have to be a bit more modest in what we can promise. So again, coming back to specific sectors, green transport, definitely a challenge in this 2050 climate neutrality promise. However, the innovative approaches that we have here, green policies in key areas in the Baltic Sea region can help us do so. For instance, creating last mile solutions, which could help support public transport and bring people out of their cars. I mentioned I worked at Bolt before. I mean, the scooters that we offer on the streets, a scooter in combination with actually public transport can be much more efficient than the cars, which take so much of our city space and take so much of our air, actually. And also developing intelligent transport systems, the ITS, that all of our countries are working on, and what they could do in order to help this real-time economy vision to come into play is exchange information to arrange, for instance, the most efficient travel plan. So we save our resources that are most important to us. That is time, that is our environment, and that's our cities. So these are the first steps towards climate neutrality. We're in the current energy crisis, and I mean the news that came yesterday from the Baltic Sea region are heartbreaking and devastating, but this is our reality. But we have to think it in a way that the energy crisis that we are facing through right now should be seen as an opportunity to transform to economically friendly solutions and business models. I mean, because we anyway have to make a change now. We cannot go back the way we have been doing. So now that we stand at this crossroads, this is the best time to make changes. And there is a lot of confusion how to understand and evaluate what is really green and how to make the difference between whether a service is green or whether it's simply greenwashing. But, you know, we as government officials can help in this as well. And the main question here is, again, data. I mean, we need data for decisions, and we need data to be included in our decision-making process. How to unify taxonomy and assessment of sustainability-related data. How can we make sure that the data presented to us is of high quality? There's a lot of work ahead because if you dig deeper, we should have structured product information. We should have transparent supply chains to allow real-time economy principles to come into action and help us. And luckily, we're moving towards this. As I mentioned, I'm going to Brussels, and these are some of the things we are discussing. But discussion doesn't only help. Governmental and business sector can already feel a nudge towards more green and sustainable business models daily. For instance, bank require this for giving out loans. In Scandinavia, it's required in the transport, in the export. The push is stronger with the EU legislation, as I mentioned, and I guess most importantly, the push also comes from consumers. Because if you order a service, whether you're a government service provider or you're a business service provider, your customers or consumers are who matter. And if they make their choices and preference is clear, then the service providers have no other way but to comply with what the consumers want. So together, I'm very happy to announce that together with our colleagues from Finland and Baltic countries, we also are creating a digital tool for SMEs for easily systemizing and compiling their sustainability reports. We just got funding for this, so we're more than happy. We are planning to develop such a tool in collaboration with ICT associations and ministries in accordance with the EU's sustainability taxonomy. And we are really grateful that our project sustainability reporting tool received the approval from Interreg Baltic Sea region. And I would really like to thank my team, Kristi and Sirli, who are physically in the room with you, where I cannot be, to have made it happen. I'm almost at the end. So digitalization in business models and services is often seen as a win-win model, but we have a lot of digital trash. And this can hide itself under the other side of this golden coin or golden way that we think. And Estonia, again, we've estimated that the energy consumption of our digital state is quite high because digital services require a lot of energy. So in very short, we must take higher consumption of energy, building e-services with longer life cycle and with more green mindset, and reducing the amount of electronic waste that we are all producing as well. So digitalization in itself is not a golden bullet. So to conclude, the Baltic Sea region, the region that we are all living in, the region that we all love and care for, I'm so happy that we have such a successful network in place and that we are currently together assessing those policies to make our region even more digitalized, even more green. And if I have to say my last words, then please remember the term real-time economy, making us more efficient, making us use our resources more efficiently. And when you do design new systems or new digital services, think of how we can exploit data better, how we can move this data between our countries. So not within only our countries, but also between our countries, and how we can develop interoperable ecosystems. Because being more efficient with all of our resources, this should be the common goal in our region. Kiitos paljuksi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandra. That was a great another kind of a response to Christian's questions and for us and challenge you gave us and reminders that in utilization of data and digital economy we can also find those common topics, and with which we can also be active and visible, first of all in Brussels and European networks, but also globally. And here as well as the real-time economic cooperation starting between Finland and Estonia, led by Estonia, it has shown that this Baltic Sea region and Baltic Sea cooperation matters, and small countries can play a big role. And really thanks for this Estonian kind of a leadership and an initiative on this topic. It's very important for the region and for the Baltic Sea strategy. Time is running quickly, so we need to move on, and let's try to have some time at the end for the discussion as well. So please stay online, Sandra, and we will move on to another coordinator of policy area innovation, my colleagues from Polish Ministry of Education and Science, and we're very happy to have Mr. Lukas Waver, Deputy Director of the Digital Transformation Center, Ministry of Education and Science of Republic of Poland, talking about digital transformation in education and science, and what kind of opportunities for sustainable growth for Poland and Europe they could mean. So please, Mr. Waver, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this event. In the innovations in the digital field are currently particularly important for Poland. As you said, my role is related to digitalization of education and science sector. So let me focus on these aspects. Unfortunately, we had a little change of Polish representative, so I don't have any presentation for you, but I will tell a few words about Polish actions in the field of digital transformation that may inspire, I hope, Baltic region countries. As we know, innovation and technology are the driving force for each country. Yeah, we have now in the world fourth industrial revolution called the digital revolution. The COVID-19 pandemic speeded up this process. In my opinion, pandemia had only two positive effects. Development of digital technologies, especially in the context of work and distance learning. And the second, as how to say it, a moment of a breath for the earth. Yeah. In many places around the world, we have seen orbital photos of significant temporary reduction in smog in many large urban agglomerations. By drawing the conclusions from the period of distance learning, of course, we are not its supporters, what must be said. Poland has made great investments to digital transformation in education and science. One of the most important initiatives launched in Poland are the laboratories of future. It's an educational initiative carried out by the Ministry of Science and Education, which I represent, and with cooperation with GovTech Center in the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. The main goal of this process, however, is not the remote teaching. As I said, we are not its supporters, but the creation of a modern school where classes will be conducted in an interesting way, engaging students and fostering, discovering their talents and developing their interests. The main aim of the initiative is to support all primary schools in building the skills of the future among the students, so-called STEAM skills, S for science, T for technology, E for engineering, A for art, and M for mathematics. As a part of the laboratories of the future, over 13,000 schools received from the state financial support worth about 1 billion zlotys in total, thanks to which Polish students will be able to learn by experimenting and gain practical skills thanks to it. At present, practically every Polish primary school has devices such as 3D printers or microcontrollers. Our program also includes mobile laboratories, buses with additional laboratory equipment travels around the country in order to further develop students' interest in modern technologies. Poland is also launching an initiative to include video games in core curriculum. In these games, we want to show, for example, a history from a completely different perspective. Using VR technologies, the students will be able to move into the whirlpool of historical events. For example, of similar activities is the recently realized VR short film entitled Card from the Uprising. Anyone there can find themselves in the heart of dramatic events of Warsaw Uprising of 1944. All these activities are intended to bring a new quality of teaching to schools based on innovation and technology. STEAM skills are particularly important for the proper development, not only for Poland, of course, but also of whole Europe. As we know, more and more services are moving into the digital world. We are not talking only about the trade, but about the possibilities of dealing with officials, financial and educational matters. We believe it's a good direction because it not only saves our time but also the environment. We don't have to use our own or public transport to get to a specific place just to sign a few documents. An issue that we are also looking at is an idea of digital school and college university diploma. At present, practically all documents of course of studies can be kept electronically. So many Polish universities already use this option, but the final obstacle to complete the digitalization of the process is a graduation diploma. We are currently working on a concept that allows the use of a digital diploma in every process in which is required. For example, recruiting for studies, of course, and recruiting for applying for a job. We believe it will increase the certainty of such a document. So far scans of such documents that can be easily falsified have been often sent via email or other route. According to a study of one of our institutes, even every 10th diploma in Europe may not be authentic. The digital diploma is also intended to significantly make the recruitment process easier. Prospective students now have to wait in long queues to submit documents, including the original diploma, to be admitted to studies. We want to brought this entire process to a digital level. Digital diploma has also enormous advantage of being able to be copied. A graduate no longer has to ask for multiple copies of the diploma as in case with a paper one. Our third field of activity of digital transformation is building our reliable website integrated with foreign repositories related to people of Polish science. The main idea of this solution is the automatically creation of scientists, how to say it, CV business card or like this. We saw the problem of lack of recognition Polish scientists and their absence in the digital world. As well as the growing administrative burden that they have to do. Our solution removes manually filling their profiles on various websites, at the same time ensuring their recognition and removing other administrative burdens. We would like to encourage other countries to adopt a similar model that will allow scientists to focus on research rather than filling the papers. We see special opportunities in cooperation in development of digital competences of young people. In September, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, we have signed an agreement with Ukraine, the purpose of which is to educate and support Ukrainian students in Polish schools. Already, we have nearly 150,000 of these students, and there are students practically in every one class from the Ukraine.
Can you hear me? I need to. Time is running very quickly, and we just we need to have time for a final presentation and discussion. But could you finalize just because these are you are actively working with the digitalization of education and science, and actively involved, what is very important for us, mainly small countries region, that as a big European leading country, actively involved in the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region. So what is the role of cross-border or Baltic Sea cooperation? How do you see what would be the most important or interesting topic in your area where Baltic Sea region would be a right partner for you?
Okay. So I think one of the biggest opportunities for the cooperation is creating, as I said before, the electronic diploma by our two research institutes, NASC and the National Information Processing Institute. We have joined the European Blockchain Services infrastructure, in which we want to develop the electronic version of diploma that will encourage and give possibilities to students to easily be recruited to other universities in the region and to apply for a job. Employer can easily check the qualifications of such a person using this blockchain technology.
Thank you. And really apologizing that I need to now mind about the schedule and very limited time remaining. So at this point, thanks for Mr. Waver and everything related, like your last example about between us. Somehow, what is kind of a key permanent task for us in the Baltic Sea cooperation, somehow as we need to now promote the flow of data across borders, we need to increasingly and all the time work actively towards mobility of talent and people, and universities and related exchange is very important basis always for Baltic Sea cooperation. But thanks so much. We need to move on, and time unfortunately running so quickly. Another important, we are very happy to have a Commission representative from DG Mare for Baltic PA innovation and for EUSBSR in general, obviously sustainable blue economy, blue growth, maritime economy is one of those key issues. And within that framework, there are a lot of domains and topics where really macro-regional cooperation matters. We've been very happy to have DG Mare actively contributing to macro-regional strategies and actively involved. And very happy to invite Ms. Patrizia Bussolini from DG Mare as our final speaker. And I need to already remind that we have very little time, so if you could pitch shorten your presentation so we would have time for at least a couple of questions at the end of the session. But please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Esa. Good morning, good afternoon to all the participants, and greetings also to the speakers that contributed before me. Very quickly, as Esa said, I represent DG Mare, in particular the unit dealing with regional cooperation and maritime security, and we are also in charge of the file on smart specialization for sustainable blue economy. And this is the main elements that I would like to share with you today, and to see how DG Mare considers smart specialization as a key enabler of the recent communication on sustainable blue economy. So it goes without saying that this communication is a key pillar. Let's say it's the blue pillar of the Green Deal. It is really important for us to contribute and to participate to this event, because indeed we, in particular, when it comes to the smart specialization for sustainable blue economy, we focus in particular on the interregional dimension, in the interregional partnership and value chains of sustainable blue economy. As I said, for us, smart specialization, it is a key enabler for the implementation of the EU communication on sustainable blue economy that has been launched last year, and also now we are in the full process of implementation. Before going into the more details and elements on this initiative on smart specialization for sustainable blue economy, I would like also to give you the very key elements on this communication, which is not an action plan, but it rather guides all the stakeholder, public and private stakeholder, to how all the blue economy sector need to cooperate in order to adopt more sustainable business model, which on blue economy sector, a more sustainable business model that ensure the green transition, decarbonization. This transition, though, also imply a challenging transformation path when it comes to a challenging transformation path that it is led by research and technological innovation and digital transformations, which also imply high investments, both in those that are considered established blue economy sectors like fisheries and aquaculture, but also emerging sectors, in particular those linked, for example, to blue biotechnologies. So very concretely, we really do consider smart specialization as a key enabler of this process. And the DG Mare, for the last year and a half, it is very much committed with member states and with stakeholders to advance in this process, not only at regional and national level. As you know, smart specialization are defined, first of all, at regional and national level. They constitute a key opportunity to prioritize research and innovation investments. So in this way, they really support competitiveness, resilience, and transition towards a sustainable economies. And the quadruple helix stakeholder at national and regional level, they do play a key role when it comes to both to the definition of the smart specialization, but especially in the implementation phase. Now, of course, the regional and national dimension is key. This comes to the local and regional authorities and stakeholders. What we can do as Commission in DG Mare it is to support the process of including blue economy sector and priorities in the smart specialization strategies. But there is an interregional dimension where we are willing to support further the stakeholders, because what we are willing to promote is, as I mentioned at the beginning, the interregional partnership, the interregional dimension, with a broader perspective of promoting EU blue economy value chains, because these value chains, we see them as a tool to support the implementation of, one of the tools to support the implementation of the communication on sustainable blue economy. And why? Because this interregional dimension will allow the stakeholders to go beyond their national and regional border, therefore having the opportunity to have additional business opportunities, and not only beyond their national borders. So to support concretely this process, in a few weeks, together with DG Region, DG Mare will launch a smart specialization thematic platform for sustainable blue economy. You might know that already exists thematic platform for sustainable blue economy on energy, marine and renewable energies, and industrial modernization. So now there will be a fourth one on sustainable blue economy that will promote this interregional dimension, these interregional partnerships. There will be, the setup of this platform will be progressively. So it means that at the beginning, we will start with those that we consider most important services, and it will be capacity building activities, training activities, networking, building up interregional partnerships. And these are because this corresponds to the needs that we have identified with a bottom-up approach with the stakeholders, because before the summer break, we have organized 5 brokerage events on fisheries, aquaculture, marine and renewable energies, blue biotechnologies, coastal and maritime tourism. Now, in blue biotechnologies and in marine and renewable energies, the partnerships and the stakeholders are much more aware and ready, and especially when it comes to the Baltic. There, it is very much advanced, because, for example, the macro-regional strategy has already benefit from a number of projects on utilizing smart specialization as an enabler of interregional cooperation, and you can also rely on the support of the submariner network. So we are really willing to extend this approach to the other sea basins, because now to go back to macro-regional strategies and sea basin strategies, as you know, DG Mare is in charge also of the EU 3 sea basin strategies, which are active in the Atlantic, in the Western Mediterranean, and in the Black Sea. So we really see smart specialization also as enabler in the framework of the sea basin strategies and in the macro-regional strategies, which have a maritime dimension, like the one in the Baltic, and in the EUSBSR, the one in the Ionian Adriatic, as an enabler to further promote these interregional dimensions. So what I would really to share now, in addition to that, is that of course we have just started. So on next 25th of October, we will have a meeting in Crete. You can participate either in person, either in online. It will cover all the sea basins. We will have contributions from all the sea basin strategies and the 2 macro-regional strategies that have a maritime dimension. So if I'm correct, ESA will participate as well, contributing and representing the macro-regional strategy of the Baltic. And I take this occasion to thank you again, ESA, for your availability. Because really we need to build the services of this thematic platform for sustainable blue economy, and together we need to build together the synergies, how we can exchange best practices, how we can be complementary, we can develop further synergies and partnerships. So with that, I would like to finish, because I am aware I have very few time, but I would like to mention just a very few things that when it comes to research and innovation and blue economy and investments in research and innovation, I would like to share with you, most probably you are fully aware, that in 2019, DG Mare has initiated the Blue Investment Initiative. It is an investment to support SMEs and startups working in blue economy sector to make their needs in terms of investment with investors. So this is obviously very linked to the smart specialization partnerships and so forth. Within the past 3 years, also Blue Invest has established a community of more than 1,300 companies, investors, and stakeholders. And in 2022, Blue Invest Fund was quickly absorbed by the market and has by now deployed 100 million to invest into blue economy innovative SMEs and startups. And now, in the new programming period, we can also rely on a new large-scale equity fund called Blue Invest EU for blue economy. And last but not least, also the MFAF program 2021-2027. MFAF program, it is the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, finances the national programs, and it has a component which is related to research and innovation. And also what I would like to mention is that we also launch periodically, we also launch calls to cover the different sea basins of the EU. So promoting interregional partnerships. Voila, I wanted to share this concrete input from my side. And if there are any questions, I would be very happy to reply. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Patricia. Excellent overview about your current initiatives and future initiatives and actions on sustainable blue economy, and very happy that this macro-regional policy has been now integrated increasingly to different EU policies, and this is about Christian's one proposal about common voice in Brussels, and now as we know that in EU we are discussing and preparing for the new European Innovation Agenda, and there's now a current opportunity for us to be active and to be visible in this in the topics that are where place-based development and matters and regional collaboration matters, including maritime economy and blue economy for us. And then the regional level, that has been a strong emphasis of EUSBSR and policy innovation. That was also underlined in our first panel by our foreign minister, so that we can also make our voice stronger in Europe and globally through regions and cities and multi-level governance. And this is definitely an asset. It could be an asset in digital topics and in sustainability topics and in topics where place-based approach matters, like in sustainable maritime economy. But hey, we are already a bit over time, but I still hope you can stay for a couple of minutes and use the opportunity to ask questions, send comments, so let's do it still, don't run away. Thanks so much for all the speakers, and now please, who would like to start? Question, there are a lot of issues on the agenda. Here first, please. Mics are where? They are.
Yes, good afternoon everybody. I'm Juho Korteniemi from the Finnish Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment. Maybe my question would probably go to our keynote speaker. My question is that how do you see when hearing those voices from IMS teams that, for example, digitalization of public sector services is one of the key areas to work in the Baltic Sea region. How do you see this as a kind of a booster for innovation in general in this region, and how this can make this region more competitive? Thank you.
Could you expand a little bit? Public services is what you're...
Digitalization of public services.
Digitalization of public services. Okay, great. You know, I mean, I think this is clearly one of the areas that, you know, I say we as the region are quite strong in. You know, we had the contribution from Estonia. Estonia clearly has been a leader. And, you know, one of the things that I took away also from that presentation is if you're small, you have to be bold. You have to do, you know, you have to take risks, you have to do things differently. I do think that's something we should consider. As in the policy scheme, the Baltic Sea region as a platform is a small player. If we want to have an impact, I think we also need to be bold. But getting back to the content, I think there is an area here where, in fact, government cooperation is absolutely critical, because it's about the standards and languages that we need to create in order to make these operational, the things that we are trying to do in terms of digitalization of public services. While we can be very proud of where we stand as a region, and you know, especially what Estonia has achieved, I think not all parts of our region have gotten there, and I think you know, we still have quite a lot of work to do. So we need to think about how we can actually use the region more as towards a translation mechanism, so that we make sure that we actually use it around the region. And in fact also not lose dynamism, because in parts of the region I think we've been losing dynamism rather than rushing ahead with these types of solutions.
Great. One more question. Who is ready? Any here, please. Yeah. You see. Yeah.
Thanks. Elina Humala, Lab University of Applied Sciences. You proposed in your presentation an interesting idea of for a need for a new type of funding for risky innovation. You also said that the EIC Pathfinder or accelerator funding is not covering that kind of risky funding. Did you mean grant-based funding or loan-based funding or risk funding, or what kind of? I'm interested to hear more about your idea.
Right. No, this is great. And you know, to be honest, I don't have a concrete answer yet. I think we need to work out how we can make this happen. There are ideas around innovation races. There could be ideas where we mobilize, quite frankly, also a lot of private sector money. Not to give it all from the start, but basically say this is the price that's out there in exchange for example, patent rights with new innovations that come out. But my starting point is the observation that indeed we struggle in many countries, despite us talking about breakthrough innovation, to actually design our innovation support programs in ways that trigger also the more crazy ideas and have more of a portfolio idea where something will be different. I think the chance is that there are reasons for why the other institutions haven't touched this. To be bold, I think Baltic Sea region collaboration could be a platform to actually do it jointly and say, you know, we all contribute a little bit, and we're seeing where this gets us moving forward. But you know, maybe something that we can collaborate more on to specify it a bit more.
All right, we are already around 10 minutes beyond the scheduled closing time. Sorry that would have been great to continue. We should have had much more time for the discussion here, but we will continue obviously here with the forum. We still have 1.5 days to go, and even though we hadn't you live with us here, Sandra and Lucas and Patricia, thank you so much for your contributions and joining, and hopefully you were smoothly able to follow the discussion here, and thanks for your concrete kind of examples and kind of evidence that we have. That there are strong elements for the common agenda and common priorities when we talk about the twin transition in the region, in local, regional level, in education, in utilization of data, in different topics, And obviously the maritime economy is always a top priority for the Baltic Sea cooperation, and very important for us to have a commission actively, the different DGs like DG Mare supporting and also taking the macro-regional policy as their kind of a policy approach and framework. But yeah, 1.5 hours goes too fast. I didn't want to stop any of you too early. It was a lot of important information and food for thought helping us. We are very grateful on behalf of Policy Area Innovation. We have a lot of work ahead there. This is about strategic choices. We need to focus on right things. Thank you, Christian, for providing a very, very important advice and also reflecting on how where we have been and reflect and comparing, putting us in the perspective and the framework of the current global situation. And but thank you for especially Sandra for then reminding that even us small players, when we work innovatively and smartly together, we can make a difference even in global scale. But thanks all of you. Hope you enjoy the forum and enjoy this session, and looking forward to meeting you here during the coming parts of the program. And thank you, Christian, for making a long journey from London to Lappeenranta, and looking forward to having you back also sooner than in not having this long break like 6 years, but looking forward to continue discussing with you, and thanks so much for joining and contributing, all of you and participants here. So see you. There's a lot of work for us ahead, but I see that there's a lot of opportunities.